Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Redington virtual sessions today. We have today's topic we have from CyberArk, and we have a pre-sales consultant, Mr. Afzal, who will be presenting to you. At the end of the session, we will be able to answer all your question and answers. So I would request all of you to put in your questions in the Q&A tab. Afzal, over.
Thank you so much, Bindya. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Afzal Sheikh, pre-sales for CyberArk from Redington Value. So today I'd like to talk about a solution CyberArk has come up with to address one of the challenges we are facing during the COVID-19 crisis, which is remote access, of course. Well, to address these concerns, CyberArk has come up with Alero. So to begin with, I'd like to give you a brief introduction, or you could say an overview of the company CyberArk. Well, CyberArk is a 21-year-old company, public listed company, which focuses primarily on privileged access management, which is considered to be quite critical when it comes to IT security. So it offers protection to the data, infrastructure, assets in cloud, or it could also be on premises. More than 50% of Fortune 500 companies trust CyberArk to protect against most of the external attackers and also the insider threats. Right. So CyberArk stands as a leader in most of the market research organizations. For example, you can see the Gartner report over here. This is 2018 report. So you can see that CyberArk stands as a leader over here. And when it comes to the C3 alliances, it has formed alliances with most of the prestigious vendors such as RSA, Palo Alto Networks, Checkpoint, AWS, SAP, etc. Right. So well, PaaS knowledge is a prerequisite to taking up Alero, but for those who are unaware of PaaS, let me give you a brief introduction on what a PaaS is expected to be doing. Well, PaaS is a solution which continuously discovers and manage privileged accounts and credentials. Additionally, it can record, monitor, and log all transactions which you have done, or else you could say that all the activities which you do, which you perform during a session, it can log all of them, so that you can perform your internal audit at any point of time. Right? So you can additionally enforce privileged control on your internal servers, or you could say that all those servers which are being protected by CyberArk or which are placed behind the CyberArk, you can enforce privileged control on them. So this should be a brief on your PaaS solution. So, right. So we know that very well that unfortunate circumstances are on the go where employees are kind of working from home, all of them. So what's the problem here? So the question that we should be asking to all of us is that, is our organization ready for the remote work? Right. So what are we trying to address over here? So we know that remote vendor breaches are becoming very common these days. So let's try to understand the origin and the body of these breaches. And we know that very well that many organizations need to provide third-party vendor with remote access. Most common means includes VPN, right? What we do is that we outsource a service, or let's say that we conduct a penetration test. So in that case, let's say we were to, in the ongoing crisis, right, we were to give the remote access to the vendor. So what we would do is we would provision a VPN access to him. So does it really simplify the work? Yes, of course, quite certainly it does simplify the work, but perhaps there are some complications it's possibly adding to. Right. So we can see a couple of examples of remote vendor breaches over here. Right. So, so the consultants that might, all the third-party vendors that that enter our customer premises could be IT service provider, or they could be supply chain vendors, they could be service companies, they could be external consultants, etc. But the most common means being used most of the time, you could say 95% of the time, the most common means of providing them remote access is VPN, right? So common risks that are associated with providing third-party vendors access is, number one, you could say that VPNs can allow access to people who no longer work. For example, that today you were to give, let's say that today you were to give VPN access to certain vendor for certain period of time. If vendors are not diligent about notifying the customer post the job execution, and if his credentials are stolen, there could be a possible strong hack. So the concern here is the diligency over here, right? And You could say that VPNs don't really allow you the granular access. For example, in most of the organization, and especially in most of the enterprises, what happens is that still we stick to the traditional methods of VPN. VPN has for sure, it has developed over time, and then it has become improved. It has improved over time. But then the problem is in most of the traditional organizations, or you could say that in most of the organizations such as ISP, where traditional products are still being used, they still go for secure remote. So what is secure remote? Secure remote is just that, you the moment you connect to the VPN, you have the entire access. There is no policy control over here. But as I mentioned a while back, VPNs have for sure emerged slowly. They are getting better with stronger encryption suites, with stronger packet flows, with stronger security. But then in the end, the problem is VPNs don't really allow the granular control. Quite often, vendors are given more permissions than what they actually need. For sure, it can be misused, right? And then when you're connecting via the VPN, there is a lack of audit which is being felt, right? And when there is a lack of audit being felt, you cannot troubleshoot it properly. You cannot keep a track of what exactly was being during the VPN sessions. That area is still kind of bleak. So there is a considerable increase in the compliance risks. We don't really doubt that remote employee access is also on the risk. In a situation such as for now, we are adding more risk unintentionally by allowing them the VPN access, right? So as we see over here, vendors at this time can access remote resources through VPN. It could be IPsec VPN, it could be SSL VPN, anything which is accessible via a remote client, right? What they do is they connect to the VPN and then they access their concerned servers. But let's consider a situation that employee is using, let's say that there is no posture policy written in his endpoint because he is not a part of the organization. So certainly, writing a posture policy doesn't really make sense unless you can frame, for sure, you can frame basic posture policies such as antivirus should be there, and then it should be, of so-and-so version. But then most of the posture policies you cannot really apply to the end vendor because he is not a part of your domain for sure, right? So he's connecting via the VPN. Let's say that today he's using a personal laptop, and maybe a day before that he was trying to download something which had a malicious content inside it. And let's assume that his machine got compromised. So in that case, the most common thing, as a part of attack chain, what hackers would possibly do is that they'll take a memory dump. And the reason why they take a memory dump is to get a hold of all the passwords which are being stored inside, right? So let's say that he had kept his passwords inside his memory, or even if it is not kept inside memory, it's not really difficult these days to perform social engineering on personal laptops because you are not protected by any source of advanced threat protection or anything like that, right? So let's say that his machine was compromised. In that case, it's a clear-cut indication that he has access to your credentials. And let's say that he has access to your credentials, for sure, he can masquerade your identity and then have access to the internal resources. And in the end, he can have his malicious intentions being fulfilled. So what do we do? What can we possibly do in such situations? So the problem is that today's solutions, that includes most of the VPN solutions these days, they focus mostly on the network access. But the ideal solution is zero trust access. As in network access, basically, the solutions which focus on network access just focus on flexibility part of it, as in they intend to provide you the access and they eventually do so. But then the ideal solution is a solution which shouldn't possibly just be focusing on the flexibility. They should also be focusing on the security that they are coming up with, right? For example, access through VPN agents, right? So access through VPNs is for sure flexible enough. It can get your job done, but the problem is VPNs can be compromised. And we are still relying on passwords. So that adds up to another layer of risk. And if you're installing an agent, you don't really want an agent to be sitting inside your system, eating away your RAM, eating away your memory. That's something which is not desirable. So you could say the most idealistic solution in this case would be zero trust access, as in don't just trust the external attackers, also please do not trust your insider threats. So we don't really need a VPN. We don't really require agents in this case. All right. So, and passwords. Passwords is a very big problem. It is being used since a couple of decades right now. And then you know that passwords can be brute force. You can perform birthday attack. You can perform a bash attack. You can perform a dictionary level attack. You have a lot of attacks out there. And then there are a lot of automated tools available these days to just get into your system if you are using a password. So we don't really want to rely on a password. So what should be the idealistic solution in this case? The idealistic solution should be that let us tie an authentication mechanism to the identity of your body. Why not? Why not biometric authentication, right? So, and we know that VPNs are not really very easy to provision, as in you need to write a couple of policies, then you need to check if policy is functional or not, and then you need to provision an agent with a couple of configurational steps on it. You need to invest your time and effort in publishing the guidelines. So there is a lot of overhead involved over here. So the idealistic solution would be just-in-time self-provisioning, process over here. Right. So, and this whole thing can be very challenging. So we need a solution which can be SaaS and at the same time can be secure, as in you are not storing anything on your SaaS. You could store your public information, but then private information and interception should be strictly prohibited. Right. So what is the solution to all the problems that we mentioned a while back? The solution that CyberArk has come up with is Alero. Right? The common use case of Alero would be applicable to both employees as well as third-party vendors. And you could say that anybody who's walking inside your organization, who is not a part of your organization, right? Or he could also be a part of organization, because we are talking about zero trust over here, as in we are not trusting anybody, be it a third-party employee, be it your own internal employee, or it could be your consultants who are walking in to perform a proof of concept or something. We are not desiring to trust anybody. So that's the zero trust framework over here, right? So common use case would be applicable to both employees, third-party vendors, etc., because we are dealing with the zero trust solution. So it's meant for anyone who's going to access your critical systems which are placed behind CyberArk, right? Henceforth, we could say that we need a solution which can provide us zero trust access. And we just spoke about zero trust access. Zero trust is basically a framework which ensures that you're not only adding a security to fight against the external attackers, but you're also fighting against the threats which could originate from your internal network as well. It could be a disgruntled employee, it could be anybody who has malicious intentions, it could be a masquerade as well. So we are not intending to trust anybody over here. That's the crux here. Well, we need a strong biometric authentication. Why do we need a biometric authentication in this case? Because we know that we have these security advisories coming up every now and then from MITRE framework. We have those security advisors coming up from Security Focus or Checkpoint Research, right? Which state the importance and criticality of having to bound your physical identity, or such as your fingerprint, such as your iris scan, with that of your authentication mechanism. All right. So, and it should be a JIT, which stands for just-in-time user provisioning. You shouldn't really be investing any time in implementing a solution for tasks such as this. And it should be fast, and then it should be perfect, and then it shouldn't really consume any time and efforts. This is the whole point of having a solution, because we are proposing a solution over here, right? So in a nutshell, you could say that the most idealistic solution is Alero, because it is providing you the zero trust access, which offers you the security, and then it's providing biometric authentication, adding to additional layer of security. Additionally, you can also have your two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication being enforced onto the authentication mechanism. Well, it's very easy to use, it's user-friendly, so that kinds of add to the it's kind of you could say pulp to the fruit, right? So if we consider this scenario, to understand the architecture of the CyberArk Alero systems, you could say that let's have a look into this particular slide of ours. You can see here that there is a core PaaS solution being implemented behind the firewall. This is the customer premises where there is a firewall, and inside the firewall, or you could say behind the firewall, you have your core PaaS system placed, right? So, so what do we do now? So what we do is that we ask for a CyberArk Alero access, and then we are given a cloud tenant. From where, inside the cloud tenant, the moment you log into the cloud tenant, you can have the connector downloaded. And once you download the connector, all you need to do is you need to integrate it with your PVWA component of your CyberArk PaaS. And just for your information, PVWA component is responsible for providing the web GUI access. So it's basically the IIS server that we have on premises, right? So with this, Alero would become, so the main purpose of having a connector here is that with this, the Alero component of CyberArk would become aware of PaaS that it would eventually communicate with or provide the access for. All right. So what now? Now that you have formed an integration between Alero and the CyberArk PVWA component through the Alero connector, right? So what you could possibly do is that you can being an Alero administrator, you can add users to the platform and send them an email invite. So you're going to receive an email invite saying that, hey, you have been invited to enroll yourself onto the CyberArk Alero, right? So all you need to do is, and yes, the end user is going to receive a barcode, and that barcode is going to have all necessary information about the end user, which administrator might have put in at the time of provisioning the user. So all user needs to do is he can go to his place. So he needs to have a smartphone. All right. So all he has to do is he can just download the CyberArk Alero application from either Play Store or your iOS store. As of now, the Alero application is being supported for both Android as well as iOS. So all he needs to do is he needs to just download that application, and that CyberArk Alero application comes with a barcode scanner, right? And using the barcode scanner, all you need to do is just scan the barcode which is present over there, and then automatically it's going to fetch out all the necessary information, and you'll be asked to prove your identity, and you do so, then you're good to go. That's all. You are successfully enrolled. So each time when you were to access your end resources, your traffic would pass through CyberArk Alero, and then each time again, you'll have to make sure that you're scanning the barcode to prove your identity. Or it could be a biometric authentication. You can also use the Face ID as well, right? It looks something like this. And once you do so, you would send requests to CyberArk Alero, and CyberArk Alero is talking to the CyberArk PaaS solution continuously through the Alero connector, which is being placed on the premises. So you are not really offloading any traffic to CyberArk Alero, right? You are talking to CyberArk Alero, and connector talks to CyberArk Alero. So there is this indirect communication channel which is being formed, right? So then finally you can have the access to your resources because of the indirect communication channel which is being formed, right? So in order for users to have access to resources, they need to set up HTML5 gateway over here, right? This HTML5 gateway can be attached to the PVWA component of CyberArk PaaS solution, right? So the whole crux here is that we don't really want to open any kind of a port on the firewall itself. This is the whole point, because we are talking about zero trust framework over here. We are talking about solution being idealistic. So we want to make sure that we are not really we are not leaving any gaps and risks behind. So, right? So in nutshell, we are not opening any ports. And since we are not opening any ports, we would need HTML5 gateway over there to access end servers by jumping to the PSM server and all activities through the browser. And it's a very seamless sign-on, and then it's totally friendly to use, right? So all you need to do is just select your resources, and then you click on connect. And once you do so, you have access to you get a browser window being popped up, and then you have access to the end resources, right? And again, the most important point here to be noted here is that all the sessions, be it RDP, be it SSH, or any connector, be it any kind of a session that you're trying to establish, they'll be accessible over TLS. All right. And when you're accessing over to your TLS, you have your right security in place, right? And then the possibility of getting hacks is very less. And then since there is SSL handshake going on, right? So you are using the most secure encryption suites. So also a recommendation here would be that use a secure browser such as Chrome or Mozilla, right? So moving forward. So the onboarding process is quite simple, and we just spoke about it a while back. So all you need to do is, at the time of onboarding, you need to download this application called as CyberArk Alero, which is present inside your Play Store and your iOS store as well, both of them, right? So what you need to do is you can either have your Face ID associated with it, or you could optionally have your fingerprint associated with it. And I need to make a point over here that for those who are not really using a smartphone, you can use multi-factor authentication such as your SMS or email gateway. So in that case, you might have to integrate your SMS or email gateway with that of your CyberArk Pass solution. All right. So what you need to do is, and when you register via your Face ID, the next step would be entering your phone number. The reason why you need to enter the phone number is just to make sure that if you are the right person who is accessing it, because your administrator might have, at the time of him provisioning you, he might have put in your phone number at that point of time. So it's just a verification method to make sure if you are the right person who are accessing or enrolling. All right. The first method was barcode scanning, and the second method is your phone number that you're associating here. Then what happens is you receive a code, and all you need to do is you need to just put in that code. And once you put in that code, it's going to automatically fetch in your information, such as your first name, your last name. And then optionally, you can add your photo. Okay. Then finally, you can set up your Alero pin code. So the purpose of Alero pin code is that, for example, today I downloaded Alero application in my mobile phone, and then let's say that tomorrow something happens to the phone, maybe the phone gets lost, or maybe it's broken or something like that, or you have simply uninstalled the application. All right. So in that case, if you want to install it again, even in same piece of hardware, or it could also be some other phone, in that case, you can just download the same application, CyberArk Alero, from the Play Store, and all you need to do is you don't really have to re-enroll and go through the procedure again. You can just put in your PIN code, and this should do the job. It will fetch in all the information which is required, and you should be good to go. All right. So now we just spoke about the flexibility that it has to offer. It's going to be seamless. It's going to be very fast. There is no infrastructural investments involved over here, right? So what are we adding here? So there are no agents involved here. So you're not really going to increase or add up to the load of your CPU, right? So you're curbing down on the load which is being added up. And then secondly, you are not relying on any password. So you're safe from brute force attacks and dictionary attacks, all those password level attacks. So you're not really concerned about password level attacks at all, which is considered to be fourth phase of hacking. So you're not really considered about that at all, because you're not using passwords at all. So all you're doing is you're using biometric authentication. So you're binding your identity to your physical identity, you could say. All right. So you're not using any agents, you're not using any passwords, right? And it's an end-to-end encryption. As I mentioned a while back, you're not really offloading or performing any kind of interception at the CyberArk Alero component. What CyberArk Alero component is doing is, you could assume that CyberArk Alero might be running on some server, right? And of course, there has to be a couple of load balancers behind, in front of it. So you are forwarding the SSL traffic. You're not really offloading or intercepting the traffic. All right. So it's totally end-to-end encryption. There is no concept of end-to-intermediate over here. Your traffic gets encrypted over here, and then it can directly get decrypted over here. All right. So it's a just-in-time access, very quick provisioning. You don't have to invest time to implement the solution. It's self-provisionable, very easy to use, and within minutes you can just get started with it, right? So the whole service is protected by CyberArk itself. That's again important point to be noted. So you don't really have to invest adding security to the new component which you have implemented, because that's been taken care by CyberArk. All right. So most of the concerns that we come across is the privacy, right? So what kind of information is being stored on the cloud itself? So the kind of information which is being stored on the cloud would include the publicly available information, or you could say the information that is not considered as an exploit to the privacy of an individual. So you could say the name, your first name, your last name, your phone number, and your face. and this is optional. It's totally up to you. If you would want to have it published, you can. Otherwise, you could just leave it aside. So you could say that only the public details would be stored on the cloud itself. That's pretty much it. You're not going to store any information. The moment a traffic is being generated from your end machine, it's going to directly be terminated onto here, right? So if you're just worrying about the packet flow over here, it's going to be simple. All the information, or you could say all the traffic, is going to be present over here, and then CyberArk Alero, which is continuously talking to the connector. So the most of the time, Alero is the one which is sending the heartbeats packets. So it's going to say that, hey, have I received anything? Then it might say that yes, you have. So since the communication is being initiated by Alero connector all the time, and SSL being TCP in nature, so it's bidirectional. So you don't really have to open up any ports over here. All right. So the key features that we just saw a while back is zero trust access for remote employees and vendors, as in you're not installing any VPN agents, you're not installing any third-party agents, you're not using any passwords, nothing. It's simple. You're ensuring the zero trust access, which also kind of adds up to the posture policy, right? So you're using biometric authentication over here. You're not really using any passwords here. So this is a part which which is of a greater concern, right? Because you are totally eliminating the necessity of the password. It's a seamless just-in-time provisioning, as in it's quick, it's fast. You don't really have to invest your time and efforts in deploying a particular solution. It's going to be self-provisionable. Every user can enroll it by themselves, and it's going to be seamless in nature. Right? And you have complete visibility and control of remote users, as in right from the Alero component itself, the Alero tenant itself, you'll be able to see and view and troubleshoot, or you could say transact all the activities which are being performed by the end user when at the time of him interacting with the Alero component, or you could say at the time of him interacting with the end resources through the Alero component. All right, so these are some key features of Alero. What are a couple of benefits that Alero is adding up to? It's increasing your overall security. So you could say that it's increasing your security posture in the infrastructure, right? And it's quickly deployable. You don't really have to invest your time and efforts deploying a new solution onto your organization. It's self-provisionable in the end, right? So it integrates directly with CyberArk. So you're not involving any third-party components. Alero from the CyberArk, and the PaaS from the CyberArk, it's a really good combination, and then you don't really have to involve any third-party component, right? And you're managing the sudden spikes in use because you're not really using any agents or anything like that, right? So let's have a look at the demonstration. Yeah. So this is a demo console that I have. So So yes, by the way, just as an additional information, this demo is accessible from the website itself. So by the end of the session, I'm going to send you the link to the demo portal. So you can also practice a little bit of a demo so that you get a idea on how exactly you can use the Alero component, and if you find it comfortable enough, right? So let's start the demo. So this is the administrator's PC. So we are viewing the screen in terms of this administrator itself as of now. So all he has to do is he can open up his browser, and he will receive at the time of your organization subscribing to the Alero service, you would receive a Alero tenant ID or tenant URL, and all you need to do is just open up that URL, and you would be presented with the barcode over here, right? And all you need to do is download Alero application, and you can just scan this barcode, right? And once you scan the barcode, it will allow you access. So what kind of information is being stored inside the barcode? It will be your administrator details. So in our case, it's mike@cyberark.alero. So this was the information you might have submitted at the time of procuring the solution, right? So that information will be encoded inside the barcode, and all you need to do is just scan that barcode over there by providing right information on your barcode on your CyberArk Alero mobile application as well. And once you do so, you will be having access to the portal. And your portal is going to be having three main tabs over here. One will be for the sites. So sites is a place where you'll be placing, let's say that you have your CyberArk solution being deployed across 15 sites. So you can segregate it and make your job easy by creating 15 different sites over here, right? So it's just for your comfort, right? It's just for the user experience and your comfort to manage or scale the solution appropriately, right? And then you'll be able to view the activities in the activities section over here at the time of you viewing the transactions and audit activities. All right. So this is an indication as in who exactly has logged in sites. This is self-understood. And now this is the connector, right, which you need to download and have it integrated with your CyberArk PaaS solution. So you can download this connector from here. So a point here to be noted is that how does the so most of the time when we take up the webinars or the training, we come across a question that, hey, how does the CyberArk PaaS component know that which tenant should he be connecting to? So your connector component, or you could say that the connector which you would be installing, right? So that connector is going to be having information such as your tenant unique ID. So there is a unique identifier that is associated with each and every tenant that CyberArk has to offer. So when you download a connector from the CyberArk Alero component, that belongs to that particular Alero component, as in it's unique in nature. All right. So moving forward, you can add the users here. So you can see there are a couple of users over here, and then of course you can, the first thing that you can see here is that there are various profiles available. For example, there is a tenant administrator, and then there are a couple of business users over here. So you have a flexibility to allocate the right permissions as well. So you need to choose what permission has to be given to employees and users. And for your comfort and for your easy understanding, you have two tabs over here. One is for the users, which is generally, or you could say supposedly, it's supposed to be for your end users, or you could say your employees. And for vendors and walk-in consultants, you can go for the vendors tab, which is over here. So let's assume a situation where, let's say, you were to give access to a remote vendor. So in that case, all you need to do is to click on invite and CyberArk Core Pass, and need to fill in all the details which is associated with that particular user. For example, the company details, let's assume it to be Acme, name, last name, your email address. You fill in all these details, including your phone number. So all these fields are mandatory, right? And these fields which we have mentioned over here, amongst these fields, the most important fields are the company email and the phone number, because the company email is the one where the user would be notified that, hey, you have been sent the invitation, so would you like to take it forward? All right. And your company phone number is going to be used as a means of proving your identity. So you might want to make sure that when at the time of provisioning an access for the remote vendor, you have to make sure that you're putting in the right information over here, right? And the good part about this is that you can create a workflow saying that every time when vendor wants to access something, all right, he needs to have a confirmation from the Alero administrator. All right. So you can invoke that workflow by clicking on this particular option that we see over here, as in the requires admin confirmation, or else you can go for automatic confirmation in certain special cases as well. But the recommended practice would be to always go for a require admin confirmation, because you're creating a workflow over here so that the whole process becomes a little more interactive. All right. So then you can provision the access for certain period of time, as in you can choose the period, the time slot, as in this will be valid. As we mentioned a while back at the time of talking about risks, I had mentioned that most of the time when vendors are allocated some job and they're not very diligent about notifying the customer, and let's say the job has been executed and they're not really very diligent about informing the end customer, so in that case it could lead to a possible breach. So what you should be possibly doing is that automate the excuse me, automate the whole process by allocating a time slot to it. All right. So all you need to do is send the invite. Now John Smith, he receives an email, and this whole tab is in the perception of the John Smith. So all he has to do is click on inbox, and he should have received the email. All right. And he clicks on verify email. and a barcode pops up. All right. So all he has to do is he has to download that application from CyberArk, from your App Store, or it could be from your Play Store, depending on the kind of operating system that you're using on your mobile phone. All right. And let's say that you're not really using a smartphone. In that case, it would follow a different authentication mechanism. All right. So you take up the Alero and then you put in your Face ID. All right. And you enter your phone number. Is for verification purpose. So what it's going to do is the moment you enter your phone number, what it will do is, based on the barcode information, which is encoding all necessary information which administrator must have put in at the time of provisioning you, it's going to see that, hey, is this information matching or not? And let's say, had there been some kind of a match being found, it's going to send you a code that, hey, this is the code which you can use. All right. So I'm going to enter the code. All right. It would fetch the details automatically, because again, the whole information is stored inside the barcode. All right. And you click on next. You can add your photo optionally. And now you can allocate a Alero pin code. So I'll have to mention it here again over here, that let's say that you had uninstalled your Alero application for so and so reason. So, and if you were to install it in a different phone altogether, it could be same phone as well. It's totally up to you, right? So you can use the same pin code and you can avoid walking through the procedure over and again. All right. All right. So now you have successfully joined CyberArk PaaS solution. All right. So now, so I'm going to click on skip, and registration has been done, right? Right. Now, the sign-in procedure. So now we saw that how exactly a tenant administrator is supposed to be provisioning the access for the remote vendor, or it could be for the remote employee, right? And we saw how exactly you're supposed to be registering being an end user or a remote vendor. So now the sign-in procedure, you need to click on sign-in and open your Alero application and sign the barcode. So every time you're clicking on you're opening the tenant ID or tenant URL, you're going to be popped up with a barcode over there, and all you need to do is you need to scan that barcode over there. And once you do so, once you scan the barcode, it will verify your information, and then you should be good to go. And here you can see that you're presented with the information, or you could say the resources which have been provisioned by your concerned administrator. All right, and you can just click on this, and then you have the CyberArk PBWA access. So this is how the packet is flowing. So you can correlate between the packet flow which we spoke about and the one which we see right now. So you can click on connect, and you'll be having access to your end resources, and your session is being recorded. All right. So now we are on the administrator's PC. All right. So all you have to do is, let's say Mike being an administrator, right? If he were to monitor the activity of the end user, John Smith, which we have provisioned the Alero access as of now. So all he has to do is just go to the monitoring tab over here, and he can see the, yeah, all right. So he can just click on John Smith, and then he can play the recording. And once he plays the recording, he can see that there is a risk score associated with so and so. So here you can directly jump on to NetBliss or whatsoever, the commands which he had executed, right? And that's how the whole process works. So this was a little bit of a demo that we saw just now. All right. So that's pretty much it from my side. So any questions so far?
Sorry everyone, I am having connectivity issues. In case you have any queries, you all can write back to us. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining the session. Thank you, Afzal, for the session.